Hi, I hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to be reviewing the brand new album from Sturgill Simpson called Sound and Fury. I hope you enjoy. Ronin starts off with like a post-apocalyptic radio segment that chops in and out, and one of the themes it kind of centers around is the fact that we consume too much, and it kind of sets the tone for the album. I think I heard Alex Jones in there, but regardless, I think it's a pretty cool setup for the instrumental here. It's a very engaging Motown instrumental with some very psychedelic elements to it, like some chords and some haziness to it. The chord progression kind of acts like a storyteller. It almost tells like a tale of revenge just through its instrumental, and I think it's a great opener for the album. This track starts out with some like Asian Oriental instrument to kick off. I can't really name it, and then it transitions into a bassy Motown instrumental. Synthwave gets thrown into the mix as well. There's some pretty loud passages where it clashes with some roaring guitars, and the lyrics kind of describe the actions of like a southern shogun. It's really weird. I think the vocal performance is great as Sturgill emotes a lot of badassery when he's delivering his vocals. And I think the "Remember to Breathe" refrain is great. Remember to breathe, and it really sticks with you when you listen to it. I just think it's a great, consistent way to continue the album. Sing Along is an insanely southern rock instrumental that clashes with the grungy apocalyptic vibe that's the thematic element of the album. The riff has so much of a groove and rhythm to it, it provides a nice bounce to the song. The instrumental bridge here also uses more synthwave elements, and it kind of has like a gritty sounding synthesizer that kind of escalates and de escalates. I think it sounds pretty good. And again, I think Sturgill gives a great performance, having a very innocent but deadly delivery towards his vocals, and the lyrics center around kind of like the harsh truths behind the beauty of life. I really like the line where compromise is all about peace while history is all violence. It's another great track. The sound palette stays a bit similar here as the track has some wailing guitar leads and a subtle gurgling synthesizer in the background. I think the lyrics are actually really interesting. I like the reference to the significance of the Star of David and kind of the intertwining of how that relates to being presentable. It helps the post apocalyptic feel of the album, where valued ideals of today's current society no longer mean anything in the context of the record. I just think it's another great track. Make Art Not Friends has a very subtle synth buildup. It's like something from the Astral Chain soundtrack, if any of you have played that. Hazy chords come into the mix, but it's primarily a synthwave introduction before leading into another very grungy southern rock instrumental. It's a slow jam compared to the other songs with a great vocal performance. It's very sweet and innocent. The lyrics kind of detail the hardships of dealing with humans and their many flaws like hypocrisy and hubris that turns Sturgill's heart seemingly to stone. Kind of invoke this sense of apathy into one. Chorus is fantastic. It melts my mind every time I hear it. Both the melody and the lyrical content of it are great, and it's just another strong song. At this point of the album, I feel like the production kind of wears itself out on this track, in my opinion. It's like another southern grunge rock with, post-apocalyptic influences and some synthesizers that sound like UFOs are on their way. It's supposed to be a love song, but the songwriting here kind of sucks, in my opinion, and I think Sturgill's performance doesn't do anything to really make it pop or make it more appealing like he does on the other tracks. It's okay. All Said and Done opens up with some very flavorful acoustics and some very chimey keyboards in the background as well. A soft choral sample makes its way into the mix, giving the sound kind of like a lonely cowboy kind of vibe. The lyrics kind of tell of a tale of someone who's gone through so much that they're just out of energy to function in benefit of themselves. I think Sturgill gives another strong performance here. It gives the track a feeling of like waning wisdom, if you will. I'm not a big fan of the production on this track. It sounds like something I would hear like a Get Rowdy rally or something. It is a very fast paced track that keeps a very high tempo throughout the entire track. I do like the lyrics where they describe the bounty hunter who ended up being the last man standing. I think it kind of fits in with his anime that I think came out with this record. But both vocally and instrumentally, it just does not do anything for me. This track starts off with some bass guitar aided with some waning synths. Another thing I love about it is the string work when the chorus comes in is fantastic. It gives the song like a cosmic country sort of vibe. It's a very calm and endearing feeling that's conveyed very well here. It's a detour towards what made Simpson sound so unique in the first place on his other albums. The lyrics here still have the post-apocalyptic tinge on them. They mention how tired he's become of people's entitlement, and he also mentions the line Mercury must be in retrograde again." I know what that means when it comes to like science. I don't know what it means when he refers it in the context of the album, but it just sounds so cool when he says it, and it's incredibly fun to listen to because the songwriting is spectacular, and I think it is backed by what I think is Sturgill's best performance on the entire album. This is to me the best song, far and in between, on the record. This track sonically comes down back to earth after that very appeasing cosmic country vibe that came off of Mercury and Retrograde, and it goes back to the thematic element of post-apocalyptic southern rock and stuff like that. I think the songwriting here has some interesting ideas, especially about the verse where the fastest horse is kind of run into the ground for $1 and kind of displaying this unique sense of survival that I think humans are unbeknownst of. That being said, I think the hook sucks. The performance is okay, and the instrumental bridge and outro I think are way too long. Like the instrumental palette here kind of just wears itself thin, so it just kind of gets more and more grating as you listen to it. It could have been a better closer if it just trimmed the fat down because being 7 minutes, the track doesn't do anything to open itself up to new ideas or really do anything to give the album a proper send off. I really like the sonic shift Sturgill went for here, going from his usual sweet and charming country tunes with like chamber pop and baroque elements to it, to a more thematically ambitious sound. For the most part, I think the sound of the record is pretty consistent. There's enough variety where each retreading of ideas doesn't feel like it's just copy pasting each other. And I like the lyrical themes of almost every track here. Sturgill himself is still a very charming and endearing songwriter, and he's also now an anime showrunner. I would love to hear him go further into even more sounds because I feel like he's able to keep what makes him special while the sonic environment around him changes. I think that's a very unique quality to him, and he displays it very well on this album. And that being said, I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10.